Season 2, Workspaces and People of Amsterdam. We're meeting with Rachid, who is the former head of design of WeWork, who was working for Arab before, and he has been in the Workspaces topic for almost 20 years. So I'm very excited on his thoughts. We'll link all the important details in the descriptions. Please leave a like if you like this kind of video, and leave your comment on the way by watching. It really helps us, and I'm happy to discuss all the thoughts we exchange. Thank you.
So the first thing we did was take out all the walls in between.
This is where the musical heart of Amsterdam is ticking. That's this place, and we're a part of that.
The more free you are to move around, the more creative you get.
Workspaces and People Season 2 here on YouTube.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. And you? Good to see you.
Good. Well, actually, I'm happy we meet in person.
Yeah,
finally.
absolutely. Same here. That's right.
I remember our first telephone call was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm like, why am I in here? You're like, who is this person? Yeah, and then you met Christoph in New York.
And then we met in New York, and that was really nice, actually. That was my first experience of like the whole PR side of my previous employers. Basically,
Okay.
I didn't realize. I was like, oh my god, I didn't realize like all of this.
There's an outside wall to this.
Yeah, you know, because my previous company I'd worked with for 11 years, and then the one previous to that for close to 8 years, and so I've never sort of experienced all of a sudden these sort of I don't want to say limitations, but these sort of procedural things, like all of a sudden everybody wants to be aware of what you're doing, and that was a bit bizarre.
Was that one of the reasons you left also?
No, not at all.
Because you've just been with them for a long time.
No, not at all. I left when I joined, kudos to them basically, because I'd left my previous employer with the idea of just setting up my own firm. It's just been something that's sitting in my stomach for like the last 14 years or something, and I've just been kind of okay, like now's the right time, and you guys have been through it. You know how hard
and then you did last year, set up your own platform.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, when I left my previous employer before WeWork. I left to do exactly that. And it just kind of happened. An old colleague of mine is at WeWork. I called him up and I said, "Hey, I'm about to do this thing. I hear you guys are looking as well. What's going on?" So before I know it, I was in the middle of their summit. I joined, and it was just. And a few weeks after I joined, I said, "Look, we need to talk about this, because this was my plan all along, and now I'm here, and I want to be." Sort of open and honest about it, that my heart is still pulling the other direction. So they're like, you know what, just see how it goes. No hard feelings. If you still feel that way after a while, then we would have known each other. We could potentially be your client in the future and what have you. And it was handled very, very nicely from that point of view. Yeah. So at some point, I just thought, okay, guys, I still have this heart pull, so I do want to kind of pursue my own thing. And it was like, okay, it is what it is. Keep us posted, and we'd love to give you work sometime. And that was that. It was quite easy, actually, from that point of view.
Nice. So how long are you self-employed now? Have your own company?
It's been close to a year, I would say. No, maybe close to 8 months, something like that. Yeah. June of last year.
And how was last year for you?
It's funny. It's an emotional roller coaster when you do that, right? Because you go from feeling super high and great, and you're about to conquer the world, to very, very low. Oh my gosh, what's going on? You question yourself. You question your self-confidence. You question your self-worth in a way. You go through this sort of ups and downs, and they're all sort of compressed in one single feeling, It's just, so it's really interesting to experience. As a whole, it's wonderful,
But then you have a double challenge because you also have a
Yeah.
young child, right? I mean,
I have three of them.
You have three of them.
I have three of them.
Okay,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I have
So
three.
you're feeding a family at the
Yeah,
same time,
exactly.
so it's a double.
Exactly.
It's a lot of pressure also.
Exactly, it's a lot of pressure, and but I've been very fortunate, very fortunate, in that as soon as I left, we were just talking about it with MP. I have a client in the Far East, so I'm basically in the moment just focusing on client advisory role on sort of design,
Nice.
particularly integrated design. So trying to bring, architecture and engineering together even closer than they are now. I've sort of always thought with a lot of buildings that architecture comes first and then the engineering gets sort of slapped on. It's like, you hang something on a wall. And and my passion has always been in kind of looking at what the people inside the space want and sort of back from that to give them an environment that suits that. And that environment needs to be not only architecturally pleasing or aesthetically pleasing, but it needs to be comfortable from a climate point of view. It needs to be comfortable from a building physics point of view, from a lighting point of view,
From a planting point of view, how we learned. Judith, I don't know if you've met her, but she also says preferably they would like to be involved from the very
beginning.
first on, because she says, it matters where there's light and it matters where there's plants. And it's actually incredible when you get into her space, even on a rainy day like this, how plants, light and everything influences the energy in a room.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an added value that is lost if you don't start from the beginning.
Why do we lose it?
Why do you lose the added value?
Yeah, why did we lose? Why did we lose the idea that we had to take care of these things?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I don't know that there's one answer to it. It's a fairly complicated sort of historical way that the industry was set up. I think to a large extent architects have led and this and having it's this old argument, form over function, function over form, and so from an do you start with putting together a space from an architectural point of view, creating the layout, because that's what the client can visualize, that's what the client sees, that's what the client is buying, and then somebody else will figure out the engineering, how to get, and the industry sort of evolved that way. So there's a lot of it. There's that. There's the it's also part of the education system. I feel like part of us engineers being a little bit introverted in the sense that, and I don't want to generalize here, but it's part of our education as well. Everything has to be precise, whereas architects are much more sort of creative and outgoing and what have you. So I feel like many things have kind of come together to set up the industry the way it is. Some of them are very, you can pinpoint to it and you could say, right, like legislature is one, for example, or and then some others are just, the way the industry has evolved, the way the education has evolved, the personalities and what have you. I do feel like we're kind of coming back, though. I feel like it's, this idea of integrated design is coming back stronger and stronger. But I've been in this industry for about 20 years now. I feel like there's a lot of talk about integrated design, but it's still not really, done in a very good, like you said, I've started my career, I entered this industry as an acoustic consultant and in New York City, and 9 out of 10 projects that I was handed at the time, it was too late for me to be sort of able to influence the design to a level.
Yeah, because acoustics is like the, how do you say, the top Yeah, I mean, we were at Sony Music the other day,
Yeah.
so we were talking a lot about acoustics, of course.
Yeah.
Because they have a very transparent space that
Yeah.
also needs glass, but then at the same time, glass is like a nightmare for
Yeah,
acoustics.
yeah,
So,
that's right.
yeah, it's
So it just
interesting.
so you know, I feel like that's part of the you know, this is part of it. Is now slowly people are starting to acknowledge, or you know, designers are starting to bring in other disciplines at the beginning of a project to think about
so
it.
there is more.
Yeah.
So you're saying people think of that there's more to it than just
Yeah.
rooms and ceilings
That's
and
right, yeah.
light and chairs and
Yeah, yeah. It's you know, it's how do you, you know, to give you like a very you know, very simple example, a project of mine that I worked on years ago in New York, where you know, we were looking after a school, we were designing a school, and by the time we were brought into designing the school, into the project, the building was already laid out, and so they had the basketball court on top of the auditorium. That's a structural nightmare. From, you know, you have to do the isolation, you know, how do you make sure that you can have a concert in the auditorium without the basketball being dribbled upstairs, you know, being heard boop, boop, boop the whole time through a concert, and other things as well. So then you end up engineering a solution for a problem. Whereas had you been involved from the beginning, you would have maybe been able to say, hang on a second, like if we do it this way, what happens? This is a very sort of hard problem to kind of just point to. It's very, you could see it. There are many that cannot be seen like this. You know, subtle design decisions, a slight angle on a wall, whatever. You know, there are many things that
to consider. What are the things to consider in the beginning? I mean, and I know you love talking about not only the outside but also the inside. So.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, and maybe this is an oversimplification, but I think when you start the design process with the people inside the building and you walk back from that, I feel like this is when you can achieve, or at least get closer and closer to achieving sort of an ideal or the best case scenario.
So start with the people.
Yeah, because when you start with the person inside, all of a sudden you realize very quickly from the beginning that lighting matters, that acoustics matters, that climate matters, that this matters, and aesthetic matters, and architecture matters, and you start to sort of peel back until you kind of put a building or put a structure around this whole thing. Whereas I feel like to a large extent the way it's done now is, you know, there's a brief from the client that says I need 50 classrooms, 2 lecture halls and this, and then the first thing that we do is we just draw them and we kind of assemble them and we try to put a nice looking facade on it, and then we basically start to engineer and kind of get, and by that time a lot of those nuances, you know, this added value that you can have is lost. You can't, you know, it's too late because
bring it in.
Yeah, because the structural engineers coming in to solve a problem, they're no longer coming in to help design something with you, or the acoustician, or the, you know. So there's already a problem to be solved essentially by then, because you're restricted. This is it. Like, this is what we're doing. Let's figure it out. So as opposed to starting from a blank slate, essentially, for everybody sat at the table together. So I think that's, so that's a very long-winded way of answering your question, but it's not an easy question to answer, to be honest.
No, of course, because it also really depends on the people you're designing for. Like, what is the need of the people? Like, are they people who need certain things? So you're working, your project, you just said you come back from the Middle East now?
Yeah.
So you're designing spaces in...
Yeah, so I'm currently, one of my biggest roles is I advise a client in the Middle East, in Bahrain, on a number of big public projects that they're doing there. Some of them are sports facilities, others are arts and culture. To basically, so again, it's a very similar role where I'm working directly with a client. There's a team of architects and engineers and what have you.
Yeah. So you work together with them.
And I'm sort of, I wouldn't say a client's rep in that sense. I'm more of a technical advisor to the client, saying, hey, we need to make sure this guy's talking to this guy because, in 4 weeks, if this doesn't happen, these are the consequences. We lose an opportunity to do X, or we lose an opportunity to do Y, from a design point of view. And trying to basically guide a little bit on policy as well in terms of, how do we go about procuring buildings and procuring spaces as well. So that's one, that's pretty much where I spend most of my time now. Yeah. I'm usually in Bahrain now for 2-3 weeks a month.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that's that. Yeah.
So how, are you alone in your company right now, or do you have
3 people?
You're 3 people because you founded it together with these other guys that?
No. I founded it, and we've recently, took two people. One from the beginning was helping out, and now he's full-time.
What are they doing? What are their roles?
One of them is a computational engineer, and basically his role is to we do things like, for example, recently we were looking at one of the projects in Bahrain. We were looking at a sightline study. We wanted to put a building in a certain building in an area which has already a landmark. And that landmark is quite important, and we wanted to make sure that that landmark is not blocked when we put this building there.
Okay.
So we did basically, we built a model for it, and we had some scripting done that enabled us to basically say, okay, if this building is 10 stories high, enable us to sort of manipulate this new stadium that we're putting in to see how it affects the sightlines in the area, if you're arriving from here, if you're arriving from there. So that's one thing that he's doing in the moment. We're also looking at automating or being able to make sort of early decisions in the design. So again, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, to be able to look at a floor plate and say, right, this floor plate, I'm going to put 5 rooms in it. If I put 5 rooms, classrooms, let's say, what does that mean in terms of gross square footage versus usable square footage? If they're arranged this way, if they're arranged that way, but we're trying to automate that as opposed to having an architect sit there and draw it and draw it and draw it. So we're trying to create that scripting as well. So that's another thing that we're doing for a different project that we're working on. And then I have an acoustics engineer as well, which is sort of back to my roots in a way, who's also recently joined.
Is that something you're passionate about yourself?
Yeah, for sure.
Because you're laughing
for sure. This is how this whole thing started for me, as a building physics and acoustics, and then somehow morphed into other disciplines.
Yeah. So what is your idea? I mean, what is your vision? Where do you want to go with the company?
Yeah.
I mean, you're traveling a lot. It's probably you have family here, so it's probably time consuming and also exhausting. So do you want to do like Middle East, or do you want to do like Europe, Holland, Central Europe?
Yeah, I mean all of the above, to be honest. This is coming to a large extent to what you guys are doing, sort of new ways of working and exploring new ways of working and what have you. I've often felt somehow restricted if if I'm focused on one place. That's I originally come from Lebanon. I studied in the US. I worked in Dubai. I worked in the US. I'm working here now. I feel like that's kind of what gets me going in a way, is like getting my suitcase and going on plane, meeting new people and learning new things. So what I'm trying to do is essentially leverage the technologies, leverage what we have today to be able to do that in multiple locations at the same time, to be able to leverage the expertise that I have. And somebody like my colleague Tassos here, what he does, there aren't too many people that have that capacity. So bringing some of those expertise to the Middle East on some of the projects is mind-blowing. It's just, so being able to bring that while he's sitting here and not having to think about moving over there or having another, So that's nice. So I'm trying to more or less
figure it out.
I think that's the best way of putting it. Yeah. So this is where actually WeWork comes in really well, because we're here now. And we've grown from a desk to an office of 3 people in the last 4 months, and it's 5 months, and it's been very, very easy. 8 months, sorry. It's been fairly easy to do.
Is your office, where is it, like just here?
It's upstairs. It's
upstairs.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What kind of spaces are you looking? What is, just for me to get me an idea, what kind of spaces do you build? Like, preferably, like, are we talking about 25-story, like, floor houses, or are we talking about small offices, or is it really like the vision behind that matters, or?
The projects that we have that I'm looking after in the moment in the Middle East, basically a football stadium, a convention center, and School of Engineering, and an amphitheater. Those are the sort of the big 4 that I'm working on. It just happens that I'm advising essentially a client that is involved in all those 4 projects. But I've often found myself very close to performing arts, again, by virtue of music, by virtue of. So if I'm to kind of pick one particular building that I'm really excited about and want to work on, it will most certainly be a performing arts project. But I feel, again, if you kind of scratch the surface a bit, I don't think that that's the driver. The driver is, at the end of the day, the client. Making sure that you're aligned with the client that wants to do something different, wants to kind of get to the bottom of something, wants to design something that is truly for their needs and their people's needs. And I feel like I have that now with the client that I'm working with in the Middle East. I have another project in the Far East as well, in the Far East in Hong Kong. And that's another advisory role, very specific client.
Yeah.
Building a very specialist space, a private collection. So it's all around the art, and how do you design around artwork and all that. So there are designers, there's the architect, the engineers, and everything. But again, sort of trying to advise to bring all of these things together early on, and make sure that we have the right people involved early on as well.
Nice. How are I mean, you have a lot of projects like in the Middle East, like more far away. How does that, why is that? Like, are these projects just not happening here, or?
So, I feel to a large extent that like this part of the world is fairly developed and is built. So it's like the bigger projects here are hard to come by.
Okay.
There aren't too many opportunities in this part of the world. Like, we're not building. Here in the Netherlands, if I'm correct, I think there's been only one stadium that's been talked about for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, maybe we just talk about it for 20 years, and then in the end it's like, oh no, we're not going to do it. We just talked about it for 20 years.
Yeah. So, you know, and in all fairness, there are many beautiful stadiums around, you know, so what's another stadium? Whereas when I'm building the stadium now in, you know, in Bahrain, this is, you know, this is going to be the first big stadium there. There are a number of others there, but this is a, you know, this is a big FIFA stadium.
Nice.
And this isn't, yeah, you know, it's happening.
Yeah.
So that's the reason, and also I speak the language, so that helps. That goes a long way as well, and I've yeah. So that's that. I find that the projects there, from that point of view, are a lot more sort of exciting in that sense. I find bigger projects, you know, that are sort of having an impact because, again, because here it's fairly built. So yeah.
So how is the world developing for us then over here? When it feels like it almost feels like it's stagnating in a way, like.
Wow. I don't know. I mean, it certainly feels. I don't know. I don't know if you can. I'm thinking out loud here. I don't know that I would say it's stagnating. I think that it's sort of the same. It's two different sides of the same coin in the sense that, you know, it's fairly built. On one hand, it's fairly sort of relaxed. It takes time to get things done. We talk a lot, like you said. You know, we talk about things for a very, very long time. But I also do feel like, you know, as a result of that, in general, the quality of things that get built here, you know, in order to move that bar, you need to work really, really hard because you get to a certain level and you just need to now work that much more to get it to go a little bit more and a little bit more. So on one hand, that's good because you have achieved a certain level with the quality of buildings that we're building, for example. On the other hand, the danger is it's all good. You know, why bother?
Yeah. So what's next?
You know, and I struggle with that. I don't know. I struggle with that personally because I struggled with that quite a bit actually. Even from when I came from New York here, that was one of the biggest things where, you know, in the US I often felt like every project in the US can be the best project that you've worked on or the worst project that you've worked on. Whereas I feel like very much here, every project that you work on here is almost sort of, you know exactly what's going to happen. You know, it's going to be really good. That's it. There isn't any more this kind of hunger to like
Explore new spaces.
Yeah, and just go beyond and do something spectacular. That's how I feel anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I feel it's, again, it's largely testament to sort of the quality of things. Like, things are good.
So if things are good, where are we going? Like, if we all, you know, satisfied and happy and fed up and,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. It's an interesting question. I haven't thought that far. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I'm totally new to this whole topic. I do get but this is from my gut feeling only, that the more we push in one direction, the more we kind of need how can I say this? I had this interview and the guy said people are craving for relationships and for
Yeah.
people and those are very, in my eyes, very basic things, but we kind of, because we focused so much on faster,
Yeah.
more modern, better, always higher, but then we're not even able to do the basic things right, like have good relationships and take
Yeah.
care of it. Like, you know, Judith in the interview, she all of a sudden she leaves the interview and she picks a bug from the plant and she's like, oh yeah, that's not good. And this little detail, like taking care of the relationship with her plant, it's like basic, but it's so much
Yeah.
what you get back is, I mean, it sounds a bit like, you know, but that is something that really does something to me. And I think that maybe, well, faster, better, more efficient, it's all good, like technology-wise and
Yeah.
everything. But at the same time, I think we have to take care of the fundament also, in a way, of the basics.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily sort of gut feeling maybe, and sort of things that I personally think about is I have felt for a very long time that, you know, our social skills are eroding and societies are eroding and family units are eroding and all of that, because it's, you know, we're kind of, you know, you focus so much on the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, I used to joke around with some of my colleagues, and that, well, you know, when we talk, when we did our review, I'm like, I always feel like you guys are like talking to me in between things. Like, it's never you're talking to me to talk to me. Like, we're never just sort of
honest
sitting
and
there.
straight.
Yeah. I feel like the moment we start talking, you're already like, okay, great. Like,
Have
now,
the next
like,
thing in mind.
have the next thing in mind. So I find that to be very, not a positive thing. I feel like this is what we need to kind of come back to now. Like, we need to kind of slow down.
I don't know if you saw the Danapani's
And
talk
relax.
in New York.
I did,
That's
actually.
one thing he said, right?
I did, yeah.
Because I've met him 5 years ago or something,
Yeah.
and I saw many of his talks, and so basically, it's every time it's sort of the same, and then
Yeah.
people approach him like, Danapani, tell me another thing. And it's always the same, and
Yeah.
so well, why would I tell you another thing
Yeah.
if you can't even get the first thing right?
That's right, yeah.
So
yeah.
that's a little bit of like what I think that people want. You know, everyone's like more, bigger, better, faster, but losing the ability for the basic things.
Absolutely. And, you know, I personally, I've always, music has played a big part of my life. I've always loved music, and I've always give this example to my colleagues, to people I've worked with in the past. You know, when it comes to that particular topic, you know, you just cannot play, you know, Chopin ballade or whatever without having played scales over and over and over and over and over, and you play the same thing over and over and over and over, and hours on end, and it's still not good, and it's still not, you know, and you get frustrated, and you feel like you're playing the same thing, and you feel like it's the same thing over and over and over and over. And then, you know, by applying yourself, by repeating, by kind of taking it all in over and over and over and over, then suddenly something opens up. You kind of, you get to that next level. Whereas now it feels very much like, okay, now you showed me the scale, now show me how to play this. Well, no, like, it doesn't work that way. You know, you've got to take your time with this. You've got to repeat the same thing over and over and over. And to a large extent, even in our work, I feel like that very much applies. You know, we take on a lot of young engineers. We take on a lot of new staff. And previously, in my previous job, and you know, and it's often, you know, you do one calculation or you do one model, and okay, now you're ready for something else. And I look back 20 years ago when I entered this industry, the number of times that I stood on a rooftop of a building in New York City in freezing weather with a sound level meter, fully knowing what the sound level is going to be, because I've been there. Like, I know it's going to be around 75 dBA or whatever it was, right? But still, like my first 2 years, that's all I did. But because of that, you seem to arrive at a deeper level of understanding, which is very much lost if you don't kind of go through this process of repetition and repetition until you sort of
Have it
sort of deeply ingrained in your system. Everything to me has two sides, and again, this is my own interpretation. Everything has a logical side and has an emotional side.
As we do too.
And the logical side, of course. And the logical side is like the easiest, in my books, it's like the easiest thing to make out. You're like, okay, like I know.
Well, I'm not gonna,
Exactly.
say, go on the whole volume guy thing.
No. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like with a lot of these things,
it goes easy for you.
In order, I didn't mean it that way, but I mean, I feel that the logical side is something that's a lot easier to understand and to kind of, deal with. So like, okay, this is the piece, this is how it works, this is how I'm going to play it, or this is a problem, this is an equation to solve it. But then there's a whole other layer to it, which we don't understand, that we struggle with, and that's the emotional side. And I feel like you only are capable of moving forward when those two have somehow aligned. So,
which is hard, because
Judith
was mentioning that she lectures at university, and like in the beginning she said she always asked the students, like, who are you, like what do you do, and where do you want to go? And then she immediately sees like some are going like oh my god, that is a question that I don't want to answer. And then people start to answer, I think da 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 da, and she's like, no, what do you feel? I think. Yeah. No, wait. What do you feel?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're like, okay, I think I get it. And no. So it's so hard to.
It's very hard.
To go back and stop.
Yeah.
The mind overthinking.
Exactly, and some things obviously are a lot easier than others, but I do feel, again, kind of bringing it back to music, and as an example, like there's something that happens when you repeat and you repeat and you repeat and you repeat and you repeat, which you're not necessarily capable of understanding. All of a sudden, I think there's a great TED Talk. I can't remember the name of the conductor now. It's a shame. I can't remember.
Just think about it. You look it up, and we'll link it in the description.
Yeah, but I mean, I love the the way he talks about how a 6-year-old plays a certain piece, and there's an impulse on every note, and then if he practices for another year, maybe the impulse now is on every second note or every fourth note. And then the more and the more and the more he practices, then the whole piece just becomes one impulse, because now he's no longer focused on every step of the way. He now sees the full journey. And so the whole thing just...
Which is a little bit like, I don't know if you know Bruce Lipton.
Yeah.
He talks about, energy and like your body. And in the beginning, it was this funny video because... he just makes it, the way he explains it is just, so basically our body is like a big orchestra, right? And there's certain things, and then if you have one, I think the way he explains is like your mind or something, like your, how do you say, when you do the... like conducting, and then all the pieces kind of, if you want to have the energy flow, it needs to make sense, it needs to be in harmony, but there's so many different pieces that you kind of need to have it. If you play one thing or like separate, it doesn't make any sense. But if you have it all together, it's music.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I explained it in a very. We'll have to blend it in because I explained it in a very weird way. But he explains it like really well.
Yeah, but no, that's so. I feel like you can borrow a lot from some of these examples and bring it back to the workplace, or bring it back to what we, to design, or bring it back. There's something that opens up.
Yeah.
When
there's music and harmony.
Yeah. When you repeat and you repeat and you repeat and you repeat and you sort of try and hone in and all of a sudden something else starts to happen. You start to see the journey as opposed to the steps. You start to kind of see something else that maybe you weren't seeing. And coming back to how we started this whole segue now is to a large extent the fact that everybody is ready for the next thing. I feel like we're losing the opportunity to kind of go deeper
into the first thing.
Yeah, because everybody is like, okay, okay, now I know. So, I built this model. Now give me the next thing. And you lose the ability to kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper, where this sort of world of added value starts to take place. And this, true, I don't know if it's true, but, you moving on to the next step in a much more balanced way, as opposed to just, okay, now I've done it once, I'm just going to go on and do the next thing, because it's too boring now to repeat the first thing. So I feel like we need to slow down, basically, and take a deep breath. Yeah, so... Sorry, that was just a bit all over the place.
No, that was super. I love it. I mean, it's I think we do. In fact, I think we do. Is there something you would like to share, like on top of what we have just talked about? Something about your work, something about your thoughts that.
Something to add. I'm unfortunately, I'm going to caveat all of this by the fact that I did not sleep last night. So
no.
So I'm sorry if I'm all over the place.
No, you don't. I mean.
No, I think that again, probably
Was this your water?
I think this was mine.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Try and have some water.
No, I think coming back to to where we started all of this, like I do somehow feel that there's a very strong connection between where we are today and our ability or lack thereof to kind of connect with each other, to reform communities the way they used to be in the past, to basically be able to have more meaningful relationships. I feel like all of that kind of feeds back into the last point that you made, and you're talking New York, that there's nobody is in the moment. Most people are already thinking about the next thing the moment they sit down to start doing something. Nobody is truly in the moment. I feel like anyway, very few people are in the moment. Our sense of awareness is diminishing to a large extent, and it has an effect on the way we work, the way we connect with each other. But it also has an effect, coming back to design. It has an effect on the way we design, on the way we do integrated design, the way we truly put the human in a space and kind of think about that and think about it deeply. Not only think about it from making sure that a building looks nice, or the structure is this, or the acoustics is that, but truly think about it from the benefit to that particular person, to the human being within that building. So if we slow down, if we take our egos a bit out of the equation, if we are in the moment, if our awareness is there, those stronger connections will only help us to kind of make better designs, to connect better with each other and with the end user. So that's, in a way, in a very weird way in my brain, that's how it kind of all comes together, you know, and kind of understanding what the needs of the human being is that's going to occupy that space. And in order to do that, you need to slow down. You need to not only ask the questions, but connect.
What do you do to slow down? Because, I mean, you have a...
What do I do to slow down? I meditate and I run every day. And that's like a... Whatever happens, I have...
How long do you meditate? Every day?
I have to do these things, yeah.
Just for 5 minutes or half an hour or what?
No, about 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah.
Do you use an app or are you...
I do use an app. I use Headspace.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I've probably joined when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that for 20 minutes in the morning and then I go for a run, usually. Yeah.
Nice. I'm still with the basic and the 10 minutes meditating, but I love it. You can pick your topic, you know.
Oh, it's great.
Today I'm like, I'm angry. Okay, let's have a look. And then he starts to speak and it's like, right.
No, it is really good. This is how I started. This is how I got into this. But that's what I...
How can you meditate with the 3 kids? Like, do you meditate when you go to the office or...
No, in the morning. Very early in the morning.
So they leave you meditate?
Before they wake up.
Okay.
Before anyone wakes up.
Okay. Well, so I would have to meditate at 4:30 then.
No, that's yeah. I mean, when you have kids, you have to do what you have to do. No, that to me has been really, really quite the change. I feel like that running is another. I don't listen to music when I run. I don't, it's just usually, go running without any. I try not to look at my phone even before I leave the house in the morning to go for my run, just so that the brain's completely clear. And I'm, you look at your phone, you get angry about an email, or you get angry about a message, or not angry, maybe even happy. I mean, it's all. And then you go out for a run, and then you're thinking. I try not to do that as well. So I find having anchors in the day to be very, very important. So having moments in the day where you kind of anchor yourself back down. Mm-hmm. And so meditation, running, going for a walk around lunchtime for half an hour.
Did you have a walk already, or are you going to walk to the daycare now?
No, I'm gonna go pick up my son. So no, I did not today because I flew last night. But I flew overnight. I landed at 8 this morning. But I having those anchors throughout the day, I find to be extremely important, because that's when you kind of
slow down.
You slow down, You slow down, and you're in the moment. And what that teaches you is to be in the moment when the next thing comes and the next thing comes. It's not that, you slow down and you reflect. It's more of just practicing the ability to slow down and to be in the moment. Yeah.
Well, we'll take you for a 15-minute walk outside.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Before you head out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for making some time.
No, of course. I really appreciate you guys coming and doing this. And it would have been better had I not.
No
not just
worries. I don't get the feeling like you're not in the moment, not aware or very sleepy. It's probably, but I get that you feel like it. So we'll give you some rest.
Yeah, no, it's good.